talk about now as we transition to the Jets. They lose Thursday night to the Patriots. They were down 7 at the half. New England missed a field goal at the end. So instead of down 10, they're only down 7. And Justin Fields at halftime, 23 passing yards. You remove that first drive where the Jets, with a beautiful game script, went right down the field, took an early lead. The offense from that point really struggled. I thought there was a real argument to be made. Hey, now's the time to make a QB change with you right in the game. And Aaron Glenn, of course, chooses not to do it. So he sticks with Justin Fields as the Jets unable to really get much going in that second half. So they lose. And then now take a listen to Aaron Glenn on Friday when he was asked by our own Rich Cimini, are you considering a quarterback change?
You know what? I'm evaluating everything, Rich, to be honest with you. And I'm evaluating myself, the players, schematics, coaches. I'm evaluating everything. So I don't want to just place everything on that one situation. I'm just looking at everything because as a head coach, that's my job, right, to make sure that I put this team in the best position to go win games.
Certainly a way different tone from Glenn there when asked about the quarterback situation, saying he is evaluating everything. This is a guy that a couple weeks ago he shot down a question being asked about Justin Fields and said, what type of question is that? So we've come a long way from that. But, Mike, look, I understand Justin Fields. You've said he's a tough evaluation. It's no longer tough for me. I mean, this is a guy that has had now 5 games this year where he's passed for under 120 yards. This is a guy that's had 4 games this year where he's had under 60 yards passing. I think for the sake of your team and just evaluating what you even have on this team, you need to go to Tyrod Taylor, because if it's about giving your team the best chance to win, I don't think that's Justin Fields at this point.
Yeah, I think this is where we disagree. So, look, I'm not saying that Justin Fields is playing great, but what I am saying is just take one play, that deep throw to A.D. Mitchell that he drops, which was a 10 out of a 10. If he holds on to that pass, a lot of things could look differently. The one in the flat to A.D. Mitchell, he certainly, it could have been a better throw. And I think some of his checkdowns, if Justin Fields just took a little bit off the ball with a little bit more touch, that's a great way to increase his completion percentage. You do that, that obviously could lead to a lot of positive things. So, look, I'm not saying that you're building your team, around Justin Fields for the next 10 years by any stretch. But what I am saying is you take 4 to 6 throws in that game, and it looks a lot different than it does now. With that said, yeah, I do believe in competition. I do believe the best players should play without question. And all I'm saying is just, mark my words. If we're sitting here in September of 2026, I promise you Justin Fields will be on an NFL team, because there's just not enough good quarterbacks, and they have to keep developing. They don't develop in a straight line. Look at Arch Manning. Look at Arch Manning against Georgia compared to Ohio State. This is a guy that, came out of the womb with more resources and pedigree than anybody in the history of our sport, and his development has not been a straight line. So all I'm saying is, if it's going to take Arch Manning some time, it's going to take Justin Fields some time. Now, look, I know he's with his third team. We haven't seen it. All my point is, there's a lot of good there, and his A throws are really, really good. And again, the verb I would be using, Jake, is they got to scour. They got to keep looking and keep going. And Baker Mayfield was running scout team for the Carolina Panthers. Now he's in the MVP conversation. You just don't know where the next quarterback's going to come from.
That's all fair, but Mike, Justin Fields is in his 5th year. I mean, the Jets are averaging a league low 140 passing yards a game. I mean, it's the lowest in the NFL since the Bears in 2022, when guess who was their quarterback then? And it's not just on Fields. Yes, there were some drops, but Mike, he can't. He's like a starting pitcher in baseball when you just know if he doesn't have it, and you got to go to the bullpen. And this is multiple times this year where anyone with eyes could see he doesn't have it. And Tyrod Taylor, at least you can run a conventional offense. The handcuffs are off from a play calling standpoint, and you could throw downfield and give A.D. Mitchell, who was separating, an opportunity. John Mechie an opportunity. Arian Smith, who leads the NFL in separation but never gets any targets, give him a chance. I just look at this team right now, and you look at Breece Hall. He leads the NFL in plays where teams have the most amount of players in the box stacked against him, and he's still having a really good year. I look at Justin Fields, and yes, he's talented. That's why he keeps getting opportunities, but he's not playing well enough to warrant this leeway, despite the fact they gave him $30 million guaranteed. If you want to evaluate your team, I don't think you could do that with a quarterback who, in over half his starts, has now had under 120 yards passing.
Yep. Well, again, the two questions, if we were in a front office together, is who are you going to get, Jake, and how much is that player going to cost? Because it's easy to say, here's the problem, but what's the solution?
Well, for me, it's the solution in the interim is give Tyrod a chance, and then you have Brady Cook, who was a UDFA that you kept around, who beat out Adrian Martinez for the third quarterback job. Maybe you see him before the year is done. I mean, I understand the long-term answer is not on this team, and that will be figured out in the draft this year or in the veteran market. We were tossing around some names I know last week, but Aaron Glenn says he wants to give his team the best chance to win. I just don't see how that is Justin Fields. Like we're watching the games. It's been the same thing. He had the outlier performance against the worst defense in the league in Cincinnati. He was awesome week one when there was no film on what this offense was going to look like against an overrated Steelers defense. And outside of that, all of his production has been in garbage time. And that's it. I mean, you can only really point to the Bengals game where he played well in a win. I mean, Justin Fields has never won a game until that game where if his defense allowed more than 20-something points, he's won until then. So I've seen enough from Fields. He's in his fifth year. He's not Arch Manning, who's making his starting debut this year in college. This is a guy that's on his third team in 3 years for a reason.
I totally understand that, but Baker Mayfield was the first pick in the draft, and again,
he had more success than Justin Fields ever had, though. Baker Mayfield won a playoff game in Cleveland.
Then why did Carolina let him go? Why did the Rams let him go?
I think the Rams let him go because they had Matthew Stafford, and that was a reclamation project in a year. Stafford was banged up and not playing. I think Carolina was a mess. I mean, they had Sam Darnold as well. I think they're a bad organization like the Jets have been. Right.
That's my point. So, again, I'm not sitting here saying Justin Fields is going to be a league MVP next year. All I'm saying is
why'd Mike Tomlin bench him at 4-2? Mike Tomlin and the Steelers, they win every year. They benched him at 4-2 and never went back to him.
They win every year? Really? What have they won?
They go to the playoffs every year. The Jets haven't won more than 7 games in 10 years, Mike.
So is that the success you're looking for? Is just to get to the playoffs?
I think the success I'm looking for is sustained winning, having a chance every year, which they've had.
Yeah, I understand that, but did you watch Aaron Rodgers against the Chargers? Aaron Rodgers turned his back to the defense. Do you know what that means? Like, do you know what that means, Jake? When you turn your back to the defense, that means you're giving up. That means you don't want to get hit anymore. So we'll see how he plays today against Cincinnati. But if I was the Pittsburgh Steelers and I saw him turn his back to the defense, that would make me very concerned. There's a great axiom that applies here, which is every quarterback is put on this planet with only so many hits to their body. And again, I'm not saying Justin Fields has been great, but Aaron Rodgers is really close to the end. So I'm not.
What does that have to do with Fields, though?
Well, I'm just saying, like, when you're evaluating their decision-making, I think moving on from Aaron Rodgers was the right decision. Now, has Justin Fields been the right decision so far? Absolutely, he hasn't. But I'd rather work with a young, ascending, talented player than a player who's very close to the end.
That's fine. I wasn't even going to bring up Rodgers. I'm just talking about right now. If you
just brought up the Steelers.
Well, because you said, what have the Steelers done? I brought up the history of the Steelers, what they've been able to do. Like, the fact that you said, is that all you want? I go, yeah, that is exactly what I wanted. A winning season every year, a chance to go to the playoffs and go on a run? Absolutely. This team has the longest playoff drought in sports, Mike. You got to get out of hell first before you think about the Super Bowl, the mountaintop. Like, the Jets are, like, at the Earth's core as far as where they're at right now. Yes, I would gladly take the Steelers. You kidding me? Mike Tomlin's never had a losing year. I'll take that in a second, 100%. Like, that's exactly where I want the Jets to be, to have a chance every year for sure. Like, I'm not gonna knock Mike Tomlin because he's 5-4 with a 41-year-old quarterback. What were their other options? Like,
Daniel Jones, Sam Darnold. And look, I love Mike Tomlin as much as anybody, and he's a first ballot Hall of Famer. Don't get me wrong. All I'm saying is, like, I'm comparing, where they would be with Aaron Rodgers compared to where they are now.
I just think at the end of the day, from a Jet standpoint, you've tried it with Justin Fields. You've already benched him once. Rich Cimini was reporting that Glenn was leaning towards starting Tyrod against the Bengals if Tyrod was healthy, which he wasn't for that game. But the last 2 games, he's been healthy. He's not on the injury report. He's been backing up. And I just think if you want to properly evaluate the talent you currently have on this team, I think you owe it to the roster to go to a guy in Tyrod, or at least as a professional quarterback, who's going to be able to average more than 140 yards passing per game.
Yeah, I'm not saying that. And again, I think it sends the right message when you do that relative to, hey, everybody's going to be held to a standard, and that's what players want to see. All I'm saying is, like, evaluating Justin Fields is harder than people realize, because if 2 or 3 or 4 to 6 throws when I was charting the Patriot game were different, the outcome of the game may have been different, but how we feel about Fields, just the one down the sideline to A.D. Mitchell, who, by the way, like, let's give the Jets credit, like, to get him as a throw-in with 2 first-round picks. I think we're going to look back in a couple of years and say that was a really good trade for the Jets, because A.D. Mitchell has size, he has speed, and he had some big drops, but, there's still a lot to work with there.
Hopefully he just catches the ball because he certainly has a lot of talent. And in a wide receiver room that has struggled this year outside of Garrett Wilson, who's on IR now, you certainly would like to see a guy like him and Mechie get some opportunities here over these final games for the Jets. 800-919-3776. Bunch of you called in who want to weigh in on what Mike and I were just discussing, Justin Fields, and whether or not Aaron Glenn will make a QB change. So we'll get to your calls. We do have Rich Cimini joining us coming up at 10:30, so keep it right here. He's Mike T. I'm Jake Asman. It's New York Game Day, 880 ESPN New York and the ESPN New York app. So let's get to some calls right now, and we say hello to Ira in Staten Island. Ira, you're on with Jake and Mike here on New York Game Day. Good morning.
Hey, good morning, Jake. Good morning, Mike. And Mike, sadly, I'm on the same thought and wavelength as Jake. And, look, with Fields, I love them coming out of Ohio State. I'm not a scout. I can't tell you what went wrong. It's just after 5 years, I just don't see it. And I think Glenn owes it to the team and the rest of the players. And if you want to, Jake brought this up, if you want to evaluate the offensive coordinator and the players, you need to see Taylor in there. But just going forward, with Aaron Glenn as the head coach, I'll tell you, I'm just so down on this whole situation, the way he's handled the media. I still don't understand 3 out of his 4 years with the Lions, his defense is ranked in the bottom of the league. I just don't see it. I hope I eat my words. I hope I'm wrong. I just don't have a good feeling in the regime that's in place. I know they have all this draft capital, but I don't trust them to make the right moves or develop the right players.
Ira, good call. Mike, your thoughts on what Ira's saying there, because I know he certainly speaks for how a lot of Jet fans are feeling going through the season so far.
Yeah, it's always great to hear from Ira, and I like to usually be on the same side of the debate with him. So just a couple things. I think Aaron Glenn's going to be a really good head coach. I've known him for 30 years. I think he's made of the right stuff. And the best thing about Aaron is if you spoke to him in January of 2026, he'll have a list longer than you guys could ever put together of things he could do better. Like, nobody will be harder on Aaron Glenn than Aaron Glenn. Like, he is a perfectionist. He was as a player. He was as a scout. He is as driven as a human being as I ever met. And he'll have the standards for everybody. So, yeah, things like the media is probably like 100th on that list. Not to say like that's been perfect, but there's just a lot of growing pains. Again, I could just go back and be autobiographical myself of when I was the assistant GM for 5 years of the Jets, and when I was privileged enough, to get that call to run the whole thing, I had no idea what I was getting myself into, and it takes a while. And you're betting on the person, you're betting on the character, their work ethic, and all those things. I know he has the right stuff. I think where we do have to give him the benefit of the doubt is if they were smart enough and strategic enough to make these great trades, then, to me, they've earned the right to, go ahead and execute that plan. And, I don't think there's any team or a team close to them that is, more well-suited than they are. And again, like, I think at the end of the day, we're all like sort of hostage of the moment, but at the end of the day, does it really matter, guys? Like, if they win 3 games this year, 6 games, 8 games, like, that really doesn't matter. Like, the foundation has to be put in place. Like, are they getting better? Those are the things we should be looking for.
Well, can you get better if you're not winning games? Because isn't at the end of the day winning the only thing that matters? Like the Jets last year, Mike, they had the lead in the fourth quarter 7 times. They blew it, most in franchise history. Like, they were more competitive last year in what was a lost season than this year, where they can never really even get to the lead, get to the fourth quarter with a lead.
Yeah, but like what you're saying then is, like, let's just take that for a second. Then based on the Jake Asman school of thought, you would have fired Dan Campbell going 3-13-1 after the 2021 season. He's arguably one of the 3 or 4 best coaches in the league. So sometimes
that's a different situation.
No, it's not. No, you just said no, it's not. Results are a trailing indicator of progress.
Yeah, but the expectations for the Lions were they were not going to be.
It has nothing to do with expectation. It has to do with your record. Your record is what your record is, and I'm just telling you, like.
But I wouldn't have fired Dan Campbell then. Like, I wasn't like the Lions in 2021, Mike. You know how many total Pro Bowlers they had on that team?
Pro Bowlers doesn't matter.
I'm just talking about their talent. Like, the talent level is not close to the Jet talent that they had this year.
But you're saying that Pro Bowls correlates to talent, and I'm telling you, Pro Bowl correlates to popularity and fantasy play. Like,
just
nobody in the
general,
NFL, nobody in the NFL uses Pro Bowls as an indice of talent. Like, that is a fan vote. That is a popularity vote. Like, we could go through here and match up Pro Bowls to people who are actually playing well, Jake. my point is, like, Dan Campbell was 3-13-1 and is a great coach, and results are a trailing indicator of progress. So, of course, we all want more wins, but that doesn't mean that there's not progress. Like, those two things are not necessarily always going to be in the same timing. What you have to look for is, are the Jets right now better than they were 2 months ago? Are their players getting better? And if they're not, that's a massive concern. So those are things that...
But I don't think they are, though, Mike. So
okay, that's fair.
So take me inside what's getting better here, right? Because I want to be wrong about Glenn. I have doubts based on what I have seen so far, and I work with you every week, and you swear by him, and I understand that. But, like, tell me what you're seeing where the Jets are getting better, what they're improving at. Because I don't see it. The only thing I could give Glenn credit for is Chris Banjo on special teams. Looks like a great hire. Mike Westhoff recommending him. He's been outstanding. The Jets have had a great special teams unit this year. They've had issues with personnel, right? The fumble week 1 with Xavier Gibson cost them, and what happened in the Monday night game against Miami, sure. But I think their special teams in DVOA is number 1 in the league this year. Like, it's been very, very impressive. But outside of that, what can I point to as a Jet fan that should make me feel good about this head coach who's getting into fights with the media, which I don't care about if he wins, but you said he's got to learn from his mistakes, right? Well, once again, there was an opportunity where he could have made a quarterback change at halftime, and he didn't do it in a game that felt winnable. So, like, what can I point to as someone who wants to believe in Aaron Glenn that things are actually getting better here?
Yeah, I mean, look, we could go back to, again, if you want to go back to the other night, first of all, like, I think the defense, again, very inconsistent, but when they're playing well, which they were for parts of the other night, I think there are certain things in their defense to me that are getting better. Like, I think they're rallying to the ball better. I think they're playing with much better tackling than they were. Like, I see less missed tackles. I think Brandon Stevens has been very up and down. Like, he made a couple good plays. He made a few unacceptable plays. And again, when you look at what Justin Fields is doing, I thought the plays with his legs, the design runs were extremely effective. I think we're seeing the development of Mason Taylor amongst others. And again, if there was 2 or 3, every team's going to have drops. They don't have a big margin for error. But in that game, if A.D. Mitchell holds on to 1 or 2 of those other balls, I think we're looking at either a different result or certainly a one-score game. And when you're playing a division opponent on the road short week, like that to me would be progress.
You mentioned the defense, right? Aaron Glenn, defensive head coach. Steve Wilkes, experienced defensive coordinator. Mike, the Jets have 1 turnover the entire year. Yep. They don't have an interception yet. They've broken an NFL record for the fewest amount of turnovers through this many games. Like, the defense just had, and this is even, when they still had Sauce and Quinn in the defense was terrible and was the biggest problem the first 5 games of the year. So, like, I can't even look at the defense and feel great about it. They don't force any turnovers. Like, it's a historic level of ineptitude not being able to force any turnovers.
Do you think they're playing better defense today than they were at the beginning of the year?
I think they are, but that's not saying much. I mean, they were on pace the first 5 weeks to allow the most points in franchise history.
Right. No, again, and I'm not saying, again, that it's great by any stretch. All that I am saying is, like, I do think, like, when you say, like, what to be encouraged by if you're a Jet fan, I think there are things that look better. Like, 4th down's been better. I think they're blitzing a lot more than they have in the past. They have 2 guys, to me, that are very good young pass rushers, which is a good place to start. I think those guys have been a little inconsistent. You could give Jermaine Johnson a little bit of the benefit of the doubt. But Will McDonald, to me, he reminds me of John Abraham. He should be a cornerstone. Then they benched, Williams. He's actually played better, I think, the last game and a half. I don't know how you feel about him, but, he's a guy that may not be here next year. But there are some young players, to me, that are getting better.
He's Mike Tannenbaum. My name is Jake Asman. We'll get Rich Cimini's thoughts on this conversation and the state of the Jets ahead of their game next week against the Ravens when we come back. Keep it right here. You're listening to New York Game Day. We're with you till noon, 880 ESPN New York and the ESPN New York app. Right now for the Rich Cimini report as we check in with the longtime ESPN Jets reporter following the Jets' loss of Thursday Night Football to the New England Patriots. Rich, good morning. Appreciate you still joining us here on a Sunday in November.
Yeah, good to be with you guys. Football or no football for the Jets.
That's right. And the Jet fan, I could speak for this, Rich. We're just excited. The Jets don't play today. They can't lose. We can sit back and just watch all the other games.
Yeah, I'm sure Jet fans were watching a lot of college games yesterday, looking ahead to late April.
No doubt. Let's start with the game Thursday, Rich. Give us your takeaways, getting a chance to think back to it, watch it back, I'm sure. What stood out to you about that game where the Jets ultimately keep it close for a half and then lose to the New England Patriots to fall to 2-8 on the season?
Yeah, I mean, that game was so predictable. I think so many people had their predictions on it come close. I almost hit it. You just knew that, the Patriots are the better team. They're far superior at quarterback. I think the Jets played hard. They're feisty. They hung around until probably the beginning of the fourth quarter. But the inability to produce in the passing game is just mind-boggling for an NFL team. I mean, Justin Fields has averaged about 100 yards passing in his last 5 starts, and that's just not conducive to. I don't care how good you can run the ball, and the Jets are a good running team, but you have to be able to produce more than 100 yards passing. Now, I know he's got some new receivers they're trying to work in. It's almost like a preseason type feel, the passing game, but no excuses for that. I would not be shocked at all if there's a quarterback change this week.
Do you, based on his body of work, would you move on from Justin Fields, Rich? Do you think there's much to work with there, or what are your thoughts on him?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. To answer your question, Mike, I do. I think it's time to move on. I think we've seen enough of Justin Fields. It's not all his fault, obviously. I mean, Garrett Wilson's been out 3 of the last 4 games. He's going to miss another 3 games at least. He's breaking in guys like John Mechie and A.D. Mitchell come in. It's been, the receiving core is, below standard for the entire year. So I'm not throwing it all on Justin Fields, but I think there just hasn't been enough progression in his game this year, except for 2 Cincinnati game and the Pittsburgh game were clearly outliers where he produced at a high level, but for too long, it hasn't been there. And I think you would agree these last 7 games are going to be about evaluation for next year. And so I think the best way to evaluate these players like Mechie and Mitchell, and Mason Taylor and guys like that, you want to have your best. I think Tyrod Taylor would probably give you the best chance to evaluate those players because he's going to push the ball downfield. He's going to read the defense better. And so I think for that particular cause, I think you need to get Tyrod Taylor in there ASAP.
Rich Cimini is our guest, of course, host of the Flight Deck podcast, ESPN Jets reporter. Rich, were you surprised that Aaron Glenn did not make a change even at halftime, right? The Jets were only down 7. New England missed that field goal at the end. And they were certainly in the game. Were you surprised that Tyrod Taylor was not a guy that they went to at any point in this game on Thursday?
Yeah, no, I was not surprised, actually. I think Aaron Glenn is fiercely loyal to Justin Fields. Maybe it's stubbornly loyal to Justin Fields, but the game was still, as you said, it was still a game, and they still had a chance. And I think the way Aaron Glenn thinks is that we still got a chance, and this guy might be able. I think, he said on Monday they were hoping they could recreate that magical first drive they had, which was, probably one of their best drives of the year to start off the game. And so, but they were not able to recreate that magic of their first drive. And he probably should have taken him out at halftime, but I was not surprised that he continued to ride with Justin Fields. But like I said, on Monday he sounded he wasn't as defiant when we ask him quarterback questions. He usually is pretty defiant, and not wanting to tell us or keeping it to himself. But on Monday, I sensed a hint of resignation in his voice that I got the sense that he's probably leaning towards Tyrod.
Do you think there'll be other changes coming out of this mini bye besides presumably if they do make a change at quarterback?
Yeah, I said Monday on that comment. Obviously, I was referring to Friday. My days are all mixed up by the Thursday night game. But further changes, well, I don't know. I think he really wants to get A.G. Mitchell more involved. I think he played 20-something snaps on Thursday. I think they want to give him a really good chance, especially with Garrett Wilson out. You're going to see more of John Mechie. I thought he had a pretty decent game the other night. He had 3 catches for 40-something yards and, of course, the touchdown. Caught a break there on the over route. I think it was Woodson, the safety, was covering him and fell. So they found a wide open Mechie for a touchdown there. So I don't think there's a lot of guys that they can. I think a lot of young guys are playing, Mike. I think most of their draft class is pretty much playing. The A.Z. Thomas, once he gets back, obviously he missed this game because of a concussion on a short week. He'll be a guy that they can get back out there on corner. I think he's a guy you definitely want to see. Obviously, no Sauce Gardner anymore, so A.Z. Thomas is going to get a full runway here for the last 7 games to see if he can be a starting corner in the NFL.
Rich, Mike and I were talking about this before you joined us. The Jet defense, 1 turnover all year, still no interceptions. So we're talking about NFL, levels of historic ineptitude here with the lack of turnovers. What has been the biggest reason that a team with a defensive head coach and experienced defensive coordinator has struggled the way they have, being able to get any turnovers this season?
It is truly mind-boggling. I mean, to think about it, they've, to go this long without an interception. They tied an NFL record, by the way. To start a season without an interception, 10 games, ties a record from the Raiders. I think about 15 years ago, the Raiders went 10 games. No team has gone 11, so we might see some history when the Jets play a week from today at Baltimore. I'd say it's a combination of things. I mean, one, they're playing more man coverage this year than they have in the past, so typically you don't have as many interceptions in man coverage. But in recent weeks, they've started to, an uptick in more zone coverage. The pass rush has been very, very inconsistent. You saw a good pass rush against Cleveland, against an inexperienced quarterback, but, against Drake May, they were invisible, basically. So I think that has had a lot to do with it. And the weird thing about it, guys, if you look under pass breakups, the Jets are among the leaders in pass breakups. So the guys are getting their hands on the ball. They just can't catch them. So it's truly one of the quirky stats of the NFL season. No team has ever gone the entire season without a pick. I think the record for fewest in the season is 2, and I would say the Jets are barreling towards that record right now.
Rich, anything else from a Jet perspective? Jake woke up Mr. Doom and Gloom, glasses half empty, but
I did not. They're 2-8, Mike. What do you want me to be positive about? My God,
I'm just going by what I'm hearing. That's all, Jake.
All right.
Well, sorry for talking. Sorry for talking while you were interrupting. As I was saying, Rich, what give us some glass half full. Like, you're there every day. Like, what's getting better? Maybe it's non-statistical. And Jake brings up a good point because it's certainly not the record, but. What do you see? Like, if you're a Jet fan, like, what do you think is a message of hope? Like, what's getting better week to week or month to month there?
Well, a couple of nuanced things. If we're looking into the half full world of the Jets right now. One, they've had some good opening drives, which tells me that Tanner Engstrand's preparation and his play script has been on point. The best one, of course, was the other night, with I think it was 17 plays or 70-something yards. They've had a couple of other good ones as well that were kind of undermined by fumbles. I'm thinking of the play in Miami with Braylon Allen.
Yep.
And this is something that Jets have traditionally struggled with, opening drives. So that tells me there's some improvement there with Tanner Engstrand, so that's a positive. Their penalty numbers have come down. Now, I know they had a couple the other night, a couple of personal fouls that were inexcusable. But if you look, I bet you their last 5 games compared to their first 5, I think the penalty numbers have come down. That's been a point of emphasis for Aaron Glenn. And I think, and I don't have any stat to support this, it's just a feel thing. I think Aaron Glenn's coaching, he hasn't made as many management errors, like time management errors, like end of half, end of game type errors as he did early in the year. And I'm thinking of that, horrible situation in London in the Denver game. I think that stuff has been cleaned up a little bit. Now, obviously it's not resulting in a lot of wins, but if you're looking for like nuanced areas of improvement, I think those would be some that have gotten better over the last few weeks.
Since Mike thinks I'm negative, Rich, I'll give you a positive. I think the Chris Banjo hire has been great by Glenn. I think Banjo has been awesome. I think the special teams has been way better than it's been in years for the Jets.
Yeah, I think they're in. I had a note on that in my column today. I think they're number 2 in the league in expected points added on special teams. Folk has been perfect, hasn't missed anything. The punter Austin McNamara, one of their best offseason acquisitions, is among the league leaders in net punting average. And, of course, the return units, you saw it against Cleveland with the 2 touchdowns. They're ranked in the top 10 in both punt and kickoff returns. So you're absolutely right, Jake. Chris Banjo has been, on point with all that stuff. That was a really good hire, and they're doing really, really well in special teams. You couldn't ask for more in special teams.
Rich, we couldn't ask for more from you to join us on a Sunday when everybody else is off, and we appreciate that.
Now I can get back to my honeydew list that I have to catch up on for the rest of the day. But this was a nice respite from that.
We appreciate you joining us, Rich. Thanks again.
All right, guys, take care.
Rich Cimini, ESPN Jets reporter, with us there, host of the Flight Deck podcast. I'm telling you, Mike, that special teams is the big thing. You know a thing or two about Nick Folk. He was, last time the Jets were in the playoffs and you were GMing the team, he was hitting big kicks to send you guys to the next round. But he's been great this year. McNamara's been awesome. And look, I think the world of Mike Westhoff. So if he's going to recommend Chris Banjo to Aaron Glenn, I'm glad that Aaron Glenn listened and hired him. I think he's been outstanding.
Yeah, and you know what? Like, there is something nuance here too, which is like Nick Folk is a great role model in terms of how he goes about his business. And look, you're not going to typically have your specialist like be someone like, hey, you want to emulate, but he is the consummate pro, like same guy every day. You didn't know if the last kick was made or missed. Incredibly hardworking, and you just win a lot of games long term when you have players and people like Nick.